Welcome to Tracy Talks, where functional medicine meets personal development. You want to be living your best life, but the overwhelming amount of health information out there is confusing, and the way you think about yourself is keeping you stuck. You know you are meant for more. As a women's health specialist, my aim is to simplify and equip you with the tools you need to be beautifully balanced from the inside out. Welcome back, my friends, to Tracy Talks. Today we are talking about detoxification. Detoxification is the fourth and final pillar in the beautifully balanced method that I used with all of the women in my practice, where we are looking for balanced hormones. So this is a hot topic. There's so much to say around it. I'm sure this could use multiple episodes. So I'm just aiming to give you an overview of the way that I think about toxins and the way that I handle them. So let's just begin here. First of all, toxins are real, and don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Toxins are found in the air that we breathe, the food that we eat, the water that we drink, the products that we use. They're found in our homes, they're found in our grass outside, they're found in public parks and schools and workplaces. There is not one place you can go in your life where you're not going to encounter toxins. So, the idea is not to live a toxinless life. It's to have tools and strategies to be able to deal with this. So, what are toxins? These are invisible chemicals that are wreaking havoc on our bodies and our minds. And the very least we can do is raise our awareness around it. At minimum, we can make better choices, right? We can decide to drink clean water, to eat food that is not grown with pesticides. We can use better products in our home and on our bodies. But also, there's lots of ways that we can get involved and help create change on the legislative level as well. One of the easiest ways to do this is to choose to buy from companies who are working on our behalf for a cleaner environment and less toxicity in the products that we use. So, first, let's go ahead and talk about all the ways that we encounter toxins and chemicals in our lives. Our households. Our households are laden with flame retardants. Flame retardants are chemicals that are used to under the guise of for our safety, but are actually quite dangerous for our health. And they are found in things like kids' pajamas and car seats, sheet, mattresses, furniture, electronic cases. These are flame retardants that use chemicals inside of our bodies, and these chemicals have a difficult time finding. They are easy to get in, very difficult to get out. Other ways that we have toxins inside of our homes are things like air fresheners, nonstick cookware, the household cleaners that we use, molds, mycotoxins, highly, highly dangerous to our health. A massive reason why we encounter immune suppression and other things take hold in our lives. How about that clothes dryer? If you use any dryer sheets that have artificial fragrances, this is also a source of toxicity inside our homes. And carpets. Carpets are a huge source of toxicity in our home with the glues and the other chemicals that are used. Also, pressed wood furniture. There are lots of ways that toxins encounter our homes. These are just a few of them. For women, particularly, how about cosmetics? Let's talk about the top 5 cosmetic chemicals that we need to be aware of and avoid. I've got this sheet in front of me from Local Motion Green that I will attach in the show notes here. And there's a lot of information on it that I think we can all be aware of. Number 1, phthalates. Phthalates are commonly referred to as fragrance. We can find phthalates in things like all the nail products, deodorants, fragrances, hairspray, soap, shampoo, lotion, makeup. And the purpose of phthalates is to help cosmetics penetrate skin, prevent chipping in nail polish, helps fragrances last longer, or even used as an emulsifier in makeup. But the problem is that phthalates are a major source of hormone disruption. Phthalates have been proven to cause cancer and birth defects, things like testicular atrophy, structural defects in the penis, reduced sperm count in laboratory animals. These things are not to be messed around with. So, interestingly, a lot of these top five chemicals, including phthalates, have been banned in Europe, and that should tell us something, right? But there are alternatives that we can look for, things like phthalate free nail polish or cosmetics, perfume, or cologne that is scented with plant derived essential oils. That's my favorite thing to do. So, number two is triclosan. It's very hard to go to any public place these days and find soap in a dispenser that is not laden with triclosan. Triclosan is an antibacterial agent used in liquid soap, bar soap, deodorants, face washes, toothpaste, mouthwash, and all sorts of acne treatments. Like I mentioned, it's an antibacterial, but it's also a registered pesticide. So, what does this mean? Hormone disruptor. It also disrupts the thyroid, and it disrupts all of the estrogen and androgen receptors inside of our body, can also be linked to cancer, allergies in children, antibacterial resistance, and interestingly, is restricted in Canada and Japan. So, what do we do instead? Well, we can use things like mild soap. We can just also use agitation between two hands and wash our hands for at least 30 seconds and rinse with just plain water. That can work too. Number three, BHA is a common chemical found in cosmetics. This is used in all sorts of makeup and moisturizers and even food products. It's used as a preservative. You ever wonder why your makeup can last so long in your makeup drawer? Well, check for BHA in it, and it's known to kill gut bacteria because of the antibacterial nature inside this chemical, and it is also a hormone disruptor. So it has been linked also to cancer and is banned in Europe. Formaldehyde, number four, top cosmetic chemical. This is used in eye cosmetics, nail care, shower gel, shampoo, conditioner, liquid soap, bubble bath, baby wipes. It's a preservative, another one of those reasons why these things can last so long. It's also a biocide, so it means that can be used as a antibacterial agent, but has also been linked to cancer and is an irritant to things like the eyes, nose, throat, and skin. This has been banned in Japan and Sweden. Number five, parabens. There's all kinds of parabens, and this is found in thousands of products, including lotions, moisturizers, makeup, all the anti aging. And it also is used as a preservative. Problem is, it's also a hormone disruptor and has been linked to all kinds of estrogen type hormone related cancers. It's impaired fertility, it's altered development of the fetus, and it's found in when breast tumors have been dissected. Parabens have been found as one of the main ingredients in those tumors. It is also banned in Denmark. So there's alternatives to these preservatives, though. We can use things, fine cosmetics that use things like vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, potassium sorbate, sorbic acid, or even grapefruit seed extract. There are companies out there that I want you to be aware of that do not use these top five cosmetic chemicals. And that's really important in reducing our toxic load. So, what's next? How about our water supply? In our water supply, we can find things like heavy metals, lead, plastics, pharmaceuticals, animal waste runoff. That sounds appetizing, right? Recycled sewage water, parasites. Here is your sign: do not ever drink tap water. At the very least, buy filtered water if you don't have a filter at home. But there is all kinds of contaminants inside of our water supply. Our bodies are mostly made of water. We all consume a lot of water, just drinking water or in the food that we cook and eat. So we need to make sure that water is clean and free of contaminants. Now, let's talk about our food. Our food supply is also contaminated. I want you to know about a website called the Environmental Working Group. Every year, they do a ton of research on chemicals that are found in our environments. chemicals that are coming down the pike from the industrial supply and how they damage the body, particularly. So there's a wealth of information on that website. One of the most useful things that they produce every single year is something called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. Every year, they do the research to find out the foods that have the least amount of pesticides and the highest amount of pesticides. And they put those out in an easy to follow list called the Clean 15. This year, 2024, the Clean 15 foods, which means these are the foods with the least amount of pesticides. Number one was avocados. Number two is sweet corn. Number three is pineapple. Number four are onions. Five, papaya. Six were sweet peas. Seven, asparagus. Eight is honeydew melon. Nine is kiwi. 10 is cabbage. 11 is mushrooms. 12 is mangoes. 13, sweet potatoes. 14, watermelon. 15, carrots. So these are the top foods with the least amount of pesticides. What does that mean for us? That means that if you're going to or need to buy foods that are not organic with a lower amount of pesticides in them, those are the top 15 that if you have to make the choice, choose those to be your non-organic options because they have the lower amount of pesticides in them. However, let's look at the 2024 list, which is called the Dirty Dozen. So these are the top 12 foods that have the highest amount or are most contaminated with pesticides. Number one, strawberries. Number two, spinach. Number three, kale, collard, mustard greens. Number four, grapes. Number five, peaches. Number six, pears. Seven, nectarines. Eight, apples. Nine, bell and hot peppers. 10, cherries. 11, blueberries. 12, green beans. So these are the foods that if you have to make the choice, if you can't buy all of your food organic, local, then make these 12 foods organic on your list because these have the highest amount of pesticides. Pesticides equal hormone disruption or endocrine disruption inside the body. So here's the thing about pesticides is you can't wash them off. You can't scrub them off. However, here's a tip that I like to use, and this goes with organic vegetables too, is you can, when you get home from the store or your farmer's market, you can use apple cider vinegar. You can use just a couple tablespoons up to a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar in a sink full of water and soak for 15 minutes. And that helps to clean. You're not going to scrub pesticides off, but there are other things that we find on our vegetables and fruits, things like bacteria and viruses and even parasites. And apple cider vinegar can help with that. I personally like to use my ozone generator from Therasage. If you follow me on Instagram, you see me doing that with my berries or other thin-skinned fruits and vegetables because I think the ozone, I'll do an episode on that someday because it's really fascinating, the research behind ozone and what it does to kill bacteria and viruses and parasites. So that's what I like to use. But before I owned that, I just used apple cider vinegar soak in my kitchen sink, and that can help reduce a lot of the pathogens that we encounter, even from organic foods. So here's on Environmental Working Group's website. Here's just right on their homepage. You can find all kinds of information, but here is other types of common chemicals that we encounter. Things like arsenic. Arsenic's a known human carcinogen. It's also found in our food and water and in virtually all pressure treated wood products. So we need to be careful and cognizant of the type of furniture that we are bringing into our home. Asbestos, 10,000 Americans die each year from asbestos-related diseases. This is a very deadly fiber. We need to be aware of where that is found. BPA, is that plastic? BPA The number of Americans that are tested with BPA is astonishing. It's found in almost every single human body, and it acts like a synthetic estrogen in our body, which can be very detrimental, especially for the male hormone system. Males don't need extra estrogen. Well, neither do females, but it can be particularly damaging to young males as they're growing up. Here's a food chemical that is found in our food supply, chlormequat. It's a dangerous new pesticide, and it's been linked to harm fetal growth, reproductive, and nervous system. It is found in nearly every oat based food that is tested. Interestingly, oat milk is so popular these days, and we need to really pay attention to not only its inflammatory effects inside the body, because think about oats. Think about could you imagine ever pressing an oat and getting any kind of liquid out of it? So what we do is we add inflammatory seed oils to it, and it's touted as a milk alternative. However, it is generally containing lots of inflammatory seed oils, and also, unless it is organic and gluten-free, contains a high level of pesticides and these types of food additives that are dangerous to our bodies. So, in my opinion, oat milk is not something that you want to be consuming. Chromium 6 is found in tap water. It was found in 31 out of 35 cities that were tested, which is not a huge supply, but that means that even out of a small sample, the majority of tap water contains chromium 6. We need to be aware of the chemicals that are in our water. And even if you're not drinking tap water, like I mentioned before, we're often cooking with tap water. So this is something to be aware of, is perhaps cooking even with filtered water. Dioxin is a cancer causing agent. It's found in almost every single American that was tested in their blood supply. It's also found in newborn fetal cord blood, which is pretty scary. And this dioxin is a chemical that is released into the air from much of the industrial smokestacks, freeways, etc. So this is something to pay attention to. Flame retardants, as I already mentioned, have been linked to cancer, hormone disruption, child development problems, etc. There is all kinds of mercury in our fish and food supply. Glyphosate. Glyphosate is something that is very insidious. It's found in more and more things. It is a chemical found in Roundup, and it is sprayed on oats, particularly in wheat and many of our grains right before it's harvested. So it ends up in a lot of things like cereals and breakfast bars and those common high carbohydrate hard excuse me high carbohydrate sources where we just grab food quickly. Lead is found in our homes and in our drinking supply. Paraquat is another one of those pesticides that are sprayed on our foods. Perchlorate, this is a chemical that is also found in our drinking supply, and it particularly affects thyroid hormone levels. um, PFAS chemicals have been in the news recently. These are known as forever chemicals. These things are quite dangerous. They're found in Teflon, which is a coating found in nonstick cookware. Problem with the nonstick cookware is it flakes and it gets damaged over time, and those flakes have to go somewhere, and they end up often in the food that you're cooking, and that means the food that you're eating and becomes a part of your blood supply and the tissues. So whatever we don't break down and eliminate, these things stay forever. And these PFAS chemicals found in our nonstick cookware, in our water supply, in many cities in America are dubbed forever chemicals because we don't yet know how to get rid of them. Phthalates, like I mentioned, found in so many plastic products, triclosan, as I mentioned, in the soaps that we use, and also a dangerous chemical called T2,4-D. This is an herbicide that is sprayed on a lot of our food supply and has been linked to things like Parkinson's, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and other cancers. So there is a lot of information out there if you want to find it to convince you that we live in a toxic world. And what are we going to do about it? Right. And a lot of people just think, well, we've got a liver and the liver's job is to eliminate toxins, and that is enough. But the problem is that we have lab testing now that proves that we have too many toxins inside of our body and our livers are not doing an adequate job. Problem is, we have become overloaded. Problem is, we can't keep up. Cancer is on the rise, and as I want to tell you about a study that was done a couple decades ago that will show you that we are born toxic. This was a study called the 10 Americans study, and it selected 10 children from the study who were chosen randomly. This was done from mothers in the Red Cross Volunteer Program. It was a national cord blood collection program. And these babies, this is what was interesting, were not chosen because their parents work in the chemical industry or because they were known to have problems with chemical exposures. They were totally random. And these 10 babies in utero were actually, it was after they were born, were chosen to test the blood supply of their cord blood. And it found there were 400 contaminants that were studied, and there was an average of 212 chemicals found in their cord blood. 212 chemicals found in these babies at birth. So, yes, we do become toxic over time because of the environment that we live in, the food that we eat, the air that we drink, etc. However, because of the nature of mothers now and the environment of babies that they're born into, we are already starting out toxic. So I do remember from when I was studying functional medicine and getting my certification, I remember they said that when a scientist wants to create cancer in a lab rat, all it has to do is inject the rat with just one pesticide. That just blew my mind because think about that. I mean, we're finding this study was done in the early 2000s, a 10 American study. We're finding 200, that was back then. We're finding 212 toxic chemicals found in babies' cord blood. And all we have to do to create cancer in a lab rat is inject one pesticide. I mean, the deck is absolutely stacked against us. So, whew, this can be overwhelming, right? But the good news is that we know how to remove toxins from the body, all except for those PFAS chemicals that we have yet to find out how to completely eliminate them from the body. We know how to remove the majority of toxins from our bodies. So let's start talking about that. I want you to think about your body like a bucket, okay? And I want you to think about your bucket. When it gets full, what happens? It overflows. And overflowing, this bucket that overflows is the state that you're in if you are experiencing any kind of symptoms in your body. So think of this as a blessing. This is your body's way of communicating with you that it is time to do something about your toxic load. So what we have to do is empty the bucket, or at least at minimum, lower our overall toxin load. Okay. So, how do we do that? In the balanced hormone solution, the way that I'm working with clients now, we start by opening drainage pathways. Here's a quote that I want you to remember. This stuck with me from years ago, and I think it really paints a beautiful picture of the entire health and healing process. And it goes like this: You are not sick because what comes into the body, but because of what stays in the body. Okay. So we encounter all of these toxins from our environment, like we've been talking about. And what do we do with them? Well, yes, our bodies are equipped with natural processes to eliminate them. What do we do though when we have too many, when we can't keep up, when our buckets are overflowing? That's how we get those symptoms. That's how chronic illness sets in. That's how disease begins to take over because we are not eliminating these things from our body. So, how do we make sure that our bodies are releasing what comes in? All right, well, here's another analogy for you. I want you to think of the body as a vast city, and each house is like one of the cells. Now, what if every homeowner in this city took the garbage out and yet the trash was never collected? It would pile up and create problems, right? Well, the same thing happens in the body. So if you start pulling toxins out, like if you start a detox regime or something, you start pulling toxins out, but there's no place for these toxins to go, they begin to pile up inside the body. And that heightens symptoms that we experience even by trying to do the right thing. And when we think we're detoxifying, we can actually create more symptoms in the body. So, what do we need to do? Yes, you had the right idea. You want to detoxify. Great. Well, there is something I want you to do before starting any kind of detoxification. And that is what I call opening drainage pathways. One last analogy for you. Well, last might be a little bit of an overstatement. I like analogies. So there might be a couple more in here, but let's start with this one. I want you to picture in your mind a funnel. Okay. So you've got the bucket already, and the bucket is full of all of our toxic exposures. And it's a process of adding these toxic exposures through the course of your lifetime, right? And eventually a bucket is going to overflow. And those are the symptoms that you're experiencing. So, how do you detoxify? We're going to get to that. But the process of detoxification is just simply lowering the load on your body or reducing, if not emptying that bucket entirely. And how do we do that? We work within the drainage funnel. So I want you to picture a funnel. There is a method to the madness of reducing or emptying out your toxin bucket. And this is how we do it. So the body has these natural processes, right? And the funnel is the best way to describe this because we have an approach that gets you the best results with the least amount of symptoms. So at the bottom of this funnel would be the colon. And then if we work our way from the bottom to the top, we've got the colon at the bottom. Above that, we have the liver and bile ducts. And then we have the lymphatic system. And then we have organs and tissues. And at the very top of that funnel, the widest part is the cells. So I want to explain this to you in a way that I think will make sense. And unfortunately, I don't have visuals for you because I love visuals with this, but I can perhaps attach a link to something in the show notes that will help you visualize this a little bit better. But let's start at the bottom of this drainage funnel. And this is the process that we have to start if we want to have effective detoxification. The colon is the number one organ for elimination in the body. The colon is where stool is formed and eliminated. And if we are not eliminating stool, we become constipated, right? And everything upstream can become backed up as well. And interestingly, a medical definition of constipation is not eliminating at least once per day. I love to see my clients having 2 to 3 bowel movements a day. Now, that might sound like a lot, but we need to be eliminating regularly in order to keep these drainage pathways open, in order to keep the funnel open and all of those things releasing the toxins and the chemicals regularly. These things need to be kept open, and it starts with the colon. So, constipation then is like that waste processing plant in that city that never empties its tanks. Okay. So, similarly, if we want to address detox from one of those upstream uh, parts of the funnel, well, if the outflow isn't moving, then that's where we have issues that pile up. So, bottom line, we need to be pooping regularly. And when we are, this makes room for the wastes and the toxins that are upstream to flow downward and leave the body. Remember that we are not sick from what comes into the body, but from what does not leave the body. So, we need to make sure that this route of elimination is kept open at all times. And there's lots of things that we can do to support regular elimination. There are lots of herbs that are great for moving our bowels, things like ginger, aloe vera. I love to use a product from Cellcore called Bowel Mover that really helps my clients with this process. Fiber-rich diets helps, lots of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. Plant-based foods creates a large amount of roughage inside the intestines that allows us to form stool, cleans the sides of our intestinal walls, etc. Physical activity helps combat constipation too. When we move our bodies regularly, we tend to have regular stools. Even gentle forms of exercising like stretching or walking helps too. Also, we cannot forget regular hydration. If we have a shortfall in our fluid intake, that definitely contributes to constipation. So we need to be sure that we are drinking plenty of water. Things like herbal tea can help too. So our colon is at that bottom of that drainage funnel, and it's absolutely imperative that we make sure that that is open. So the next thing, we walk our way up from the drainage funnel and after the colon is our liver and bile ducts. And this is very important in that I want you to think about, in terms of that analogy of the city, that the liver is like the reservoir that collects the wastewater from the entire town. And the liver's job then is to separate the water from the waste so that the water can be cleaned up and sent back to the houses for reuse. Okay. But as for the waste, the liver needs to filter all of that. So the liver filters those toxins from the blood and it processes them for elimination. And when those toxins are processed, it gets deposited then into the bile. And so the bile then is released through something called the common bile duct into the small intestine during the digestive process. And a lot of that is then added to our stools and eliminated. So that you can see how those wastes then get eliminated through that digestive process through the colon. And that's why we have to have that colon open. So overall, this is a really brilliant system, right? And it works smoothly when the liver and bile ducts are open. But the problem is that the more toxic we are, we can have a situation where the bile ducts become blocked. Now, think of it like stagnation. Stagnation breeds sickness. So when things are not moving, then they become stagnant and they can swirl and recycle. And this is what happens with hormones in particular, is that if our bile ducts are not open and we're not eliminate these toxins and the waste products through the liver into the digestive process eliminated through the colon, then they begin to recycle themselves. So things that can disrupt our bile ducts or cause our bile ducts or liver to be sluggish or our bile ducts to be blocked are things like bacteria. There's all kinds of bacteria that can block our liver ducts. There's certain drugs like antibiotics or anti-inflammatories or even antidepressants that affect our bile ducts. Excess estrogen, from all of these chemicals and cosmetics preservatives, fragrances that we use in our products, these all increase estrogen levels. And when we have an increase or an excess estrogen level, this can contribute to our bile ducts being blocked. Parasites, hey, you know what the test is to know if you have a parasite? If you have a pulse, you have a parasite. So it's not just for people who live overseas or travel overseas. Parasites are nearly avoidable these days, and parasites can also obstruct the bile duct. Other specific types of toxins like the glyphosate can reduce that bile production and flow, leading to blockages as well, and viruses too, things like hepatitis and herpes viruses that are particularly found in the liver and the bile ducts can also create inflammation inside that liver and bile duct, which can block the bile duct. So this becomes an issue where the liver gets backed up and is not moving things quickly. So there are lots of ways that we can help create a liver that is flowing with herbal remedies and where we can open up these bile ducts. And one of my favorite ways to do that is a product also from Cellcore called Advanced Tudka. It is a bile acid and it helps improve that bile flow and it guards against the bile duct damage. It helps reduce inflammation there, etc. Coffee enemas are another thing. These are an age-old tool for liver detox. They're scary before you ever attempt one. People who do them, though, find that they actually love the way they feel afterwards. And it can actually be something that people look forward to. Imagine that. Having enough iodine in our diet is really important. We need this trace mineral for thyroid hormones in particular, including thyroxine. And thyroxine is very important in the bile duct. So it helps to release that bile into the digestive tract so it can be eliminated through the colon. So if we don't have enough thyroxine, which is common in situations like hypothyroidism, then that also can affect the flow of this bile into the elimination pathways. So this is how thyroid health is essential for thyroid clients with Hashimoto's or any form of hypothyroidism. We need enough minerals. We need things like selenium and magnesium, not just for thyroid health, but also to support liver detoxification. I also love a product called KL Support. This has herbs in it like milk thistle, parsley, ginger to support overall liver and kidney function. And this is essential to any detox protocol. Zinc is another thing. We need to make sure that we have enough zinc in our body, and this helps to protect the liver cells from damage. Okay, so let's keep going on that drainage funnel. So we've got the colon at the bottom, then we have liver and bile ducts above that. Above liver and bile ducts is the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is often overlooked and neglected, but actually it is of vital importance in our body. It is the network where we drain fluids from body tissues. And this system in the body is found throughout the body. It's very widespread. It can be found just underneath the skin's dermis, and it goes through all of our mucous membranes. It covers major organs, including our respiratory tract, our sinuses, intestine, all of the mesentery, diaphragm, heart, lungs, etc. So we now understand that when our lymphatic vessels are healthy, they are able to then remove the waste from our tissues and blood supply, and so that it can be eliminated. So the natural process of our body is that our blood vessels actually leak fluid into our tissues. I mean, like several liters a day. So, one of the lymphatic system's job is to collect that fluid and return it to the blood. But first, those lymph nodes need to filter out the bacteria, toxins, viruses, right? So that the immune system can deal with it. But the problem is the lymph doesn't always work that way because it doesn't always get the flow that it needs. Because unlike the cardiovascular system, our lymph system does not have a way of moving itself, pushing itself throughout the body. So if you've ever had like swollen ankles, or swelling anywhere throughout the body, you know what that lymph stagnation feels like. Or if you have any cellulite in your body, which is very common among women, this also is a result of lymph stagnation, which can be tied to that sluggish liver because everything builds on itself. There is lots of ways to get the lymph moving inside of our body. Physical activity is fantastic. Things like going for a walk, stretching, also rebounding, jumping on a trampoline is helpful to get that lymph moving. Sauna use is really powerful for moving the lymph. It helps warm up the lymphatic fluid and it helps it to flow better. Massage is another wonderful thing that helps move the lymph. Lymphatic massage is an actual type of massage that is really gentle, but it uses pressure in certain places to help move the lymph system along. There are lots of herbs too, things like astragalus, burdock root, that can support lymph drainage. Organs and tissues are the next thing on this drainage funnel. So at the bottom, just by way of recap, we've got the colon, got the liver and bile ducts, we have the lymph system. Just above that is organs and tissues. The brain is one of the most powerful things that uses the lymphatic system as a way to reduce waste and fluids. So sleep is the number one thing that we need to make sure that is optimized in our body so that we can eliminate potential neurotoxic waste from the body. So think of that glymphatic system, back to that city analogy, is like the fleet of garbage trucks. It's collecting the waste in the city and it's removing it away from the city. That's what the glymphatic system does for the brain. So the caveat is that this happens mostly during sleep. And so we need to make sure that we have good, effective sleep happening, deep sleep in particular, that we're cycling through REM, light sleep, deep sleep, at least 4 times into the night for this system to be working properly. And signs when the organs and tissues, particularly the brain and the lymphatic system, have been compromised, these are where symptoms like brain fog, headaches, memory issues, cognitive decline all come in. So there's lots of ways that we can help with that outside of sleep, including some herbal supports. But the main work here is we need to keep these systems that are already in place open so that they can eliminate the waste products that are coming in into our body. So at the very, very top of this drainage funnel are the cells. And the cells are like those houses within that city. And each home, they have waste products, right? We have waste products in our house from like tubs, toilets, trash cans, etc. But our cells in our body have waste products too. Things like the toxins that we've been talking about. So they can accumulate from all of these external sources we've identified, from these air pollutants, from heavy metals, from molds and mycotoxins, from pesticides. And the problem is that it creates something that is detrimental and a root to all forms of chronic illness, which is mitochondrial dysfunction. So we need to be very diligent about getting rid of these things. Now, the mitochondria, the powerhouse of those cells, we need the mitochondria to be functioning optimally to generate the energy that our cells need to support this process of detoxification. Also, it's essentially important for things like our immunity and DNA repair. So all of these systems need to be working together to create this beautiful, organized process of opening these drainage pathways to let out whatever has come in. So, by way of recap, remember it's things like having 2 to 3 bowel movements a day, getting the bile flowing so that our liver can eliminate the waste. It's moving the lymph. This is where exercise, movement, massage comes in. And then lastly, supporting that mitochondrial function with good sleep and targeted supplements and nutrition to make sure all of this is working optimally. So, only when these drainage pathways are open can you even begin to do the work of deeper detoxification. The reason why that funnel image works well is because you begin to see that if any point one of these drainage pathways is closed off, no matter what you do upstream, it's not going to be eliminated from the body. So we need to be very careful and systematic about the way that we do this. So, but the good news is that when we detoxify properly, these are the types of things that my clients experience. They get a boost in their mood. And here's why, because it releases the use of vitamins and minerals for other areas like neurotransmitter production. We have a process of liver detoxification called phase 1 and phase 2, and it requires an enormous amount of nutrients in order to accomplish that properly. Well, when we're not needing all of those nutrients from our diet to be used just to detoxify, then those nutrients can be freed up to create the feel good hormones inside of our gut, and the whole thing just begins to move more smoothly. Also, we can begin to lose weight with ease, because blood sugar all of a sudden becomes regulated when we're not caught up with the work of detoxifying. The body then learns to burn fat to a greater degree, which is a really awesome side effect of detoxification. Number 3, it improves nutrient uptake, right? So when we're eating the proper foods, our digestion begins to work properly. It's not constantly needing to deal with the overload and the payload of the pesticide and the chemicals that are found in our food. So we have better nutrient absorption in the gut. We have better nutrient absorption. We have better nutrient utilization, which means more energy. So, number four, uh, what I see my clients experience is that they stay asleep. Have you ever found yourself waking up between 1 and 3 a.m.? Well, according to Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, liver detoxification happens somewhere in those exact same hours. So when people find themselves waking up that time of night consistently, it's a very good indicator that the liver is due for a thorough detoxification. Number five, another side benefit of detoxifying the body properly is autophagy increases. Autophagy is the body's process of removing those dead or senescent cells. So cells have a lifespan. And what do we do with them? Though once they've been used and expended, we need a process of how to eliminate them. And that is the work of autophagy. And when we are detoxifying our body properly, our autophagy works like it should. Number six, boost in energy. Obviously, this makes sense based on these other things, is that when we're expending less energy for the process of detoxification, we then feel more energy. Number seven, cellular aging gets improved. Well, how does this work? Toxins damage DNA, and we have the science to show that they shorten the telomere length, and this can be measured. So, when we see proper detoxification happen inside the body, there is overall less inflammation in the body and less DNA damage. This is a favorite benefit for my clients. Finally, hormones get balanced. And that is because proper detoxification helps calm the sympathetic nervous system. It balances blood sugar, it reduces inflammation. Thereby, this is the entire process of balancing hormones in the body. Number nine, it clears skin. When there's less bacteria and toxins in the blood, there's less to be pushed out through the skin, which is one of our major detoxification organs. And that is why that when you're dealing with something like eczema or psoriasis, detoxification is in order because our skin is wanting to eliminate these toxins. And so we find that we get clearer skin when we're detoxifying the body properly. And lastly, number 10, we just get a calm digestion. No more bloating, no more constipation, no more irritable bowels, no more unnecessary gas, etc., because the digestive system finally gets its chance to rest and repair. So, this is exactly the process that I follow in the balanced hormone solution. We reduce our exposure. We've got 1,000 chemicals that we're encountering every single day, if not more, and 1,000 reasons to avoid them, and a lot of alternatives of how to avoid them. So, number one, we have to first address reducing our exposure to them in our lives through the food that we eat, the air that we breathe, and our home environments, and particularly the cosmetics and beauty products, home cleaning products that we use. Then we open these drainage pathways. We make sure that that drainage funnel is working properly so that, lastly, we can optimize detoxification. And we do that with targeted nutrition and supplements. So, here's my last analogy for you. Think of your body like an expensive car, right? You wouldn't put Walmart low octane fuel in a Lamborghini. It wouldn't run very well on that, and it wouldn't last very long, and it wouldn't run optimally. So, how much more valuable are you than that Lamborghini? I want you to treat yourself like a well oiled machine. You deserve to be that well oiled machine, and your body will reward you with great health and vitality when you detoxify properly, when you reduce your exposure, and when you keep your drainage pathways open. So, just like you can't take the trash out of your kitchen once and for all, because the garbage service in the city can't just come on a Thursday and never again, it's got to come regularly. You still live in a toxic environment because you live in the world. And you need to have a regular routine of detoxifying. This is definitely a process. So, with my clients, it looks a little something like this. We do an annual deeper detoxification while working on a consistent approach to keeping the drainage pathways open on a daily basis. We only do an annual deeper detoxification and then quarterly detoxes that are much smaller in nature. And I consider those like tune up. So once a year, a deeper detox, 4 times a year, these tune ups, and then daily working on keeping these drainage pathways open so that we're giving our body the best shot at eliminating everything that it needs to so that we don't breed that stagnation, which contributes to chronic illness. So if this is something that sounds like you need to do, I would love to walk you through a personalized plan, figure out where you're at, what your daily exposure is, what your past exposure is with a really thorough health history, and help you get to a point where your drainage pathways are open and you can actually achieve a deeper detoxification that is safe for you and effective. So this is a big topic. There's so much to cover here. What I really want you to take away is that toxins are real. We encounter them on a daily basis, but we don't have to be afraid of them. And we know that we have a ton of tools at our disposal to deal with them on a daily, monthly, and yearly basis. So I hope that this helps. I'll put some notes in the show notes below for a deeper dive into this topic if you're more fascinated with the details and the kinds of toxins that we encounter on a regular basis. So until next time, stay beautifully balanced, my friends. Thank you for joining me today on Tracy Aaron Talks. I hope you found today's episode enriching to your life. If you enjoyed today's content, would you consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving a review? That simple act helps this podcast get into the hands and ears of many more women just like you. Remember, anything you want and do not yet have will require a new set of beliefs, thoughts, actions, and a new you. I am honored to be on this journey with you as we wholeheartedly pursue true health and wellness in mind, body, and soul.